Alright guys, so I want to make a short video on why the Nissan 240SX rust. I want to share my experience on what I found and what potentially caused it to rust. Hopefully this video can educate you a little bit on my experience. So whether you have rust or not, maybe you can prevent it from getting worse, because you know nobody wanted a rust bucket, right? So let's get started. Alright, so number one, we're gonna start with the very common spot. Everybody knows the fucking battery tray, alright? So check it out. Usually the battery sits right here. This car is a 94, so we're talking about 27 years of driving and the battery's moving back and forth, you know, small little movements, but that's gonna rub the paint off and you're left with bare metal exposed. And then on top of that, the acid from the battery drips off and it's gonna eat into the metal and promote rusting. So usually some guys have it light, but from what I've seen, when guys get rust here, it goes bad, it's eating through the metal. You gotta cut the metal out. So that is one spot. So number two, we're talking about frame rails. You're gonna lower your car, you're gonna drive, it's gonna rub on speed bumps. And guess what? Over time, when there's no paint covering the frame rails, it's gonna be bare metal. So that, with a combination of oxygen and water, is gonna promote rusting, right? And the longer you leave it, the deeper the rust is gonna eat into the metal. These metal, they're not very thick, they're actually thin metal. So it's up to you. You wanna slam your car and keep rubbing away your paint, you will get rust. That's a guarantee. So I actually wanna go in depth with the driver frame rail. Mine was so rusted out that I actually had to cut metal out and replace the metal and weld it back in. Usually there's a 1/2 inch gap here from factory. Same with the passenger side. You can see here I use seam sealer and I seal that up. Same with over here. It's not hard, man. Just lay a bead, let it cure, and lay another bead and make it smooth, just to seal it up. My theory is, so you got a brake booster here with the brake master cylinder, and over time, sometimes brake fluid come out. It's gonna fucking drip here and work its way down. Same with water, whatever it is. It's gonna go in there and kind of hang out in here and incubate. So everyone knows that brake fluid will lift paint. So once paint's lifted off, you got bare metal all over again, right? Bare metal, oxygen, water promotes rusting. It's gonna start eating the inside, and by the time you notice your frame rail rusting, it's too late, right? It's dead inside here. And then now you gotta deal with this whole mess over here. So if you can, deal with it. If it hasn't rusted, seal this up. If you can, spray some cavity wax in here. That helps a lot protect the metal. Same with over here, right? You want to deal with that because nobody wants to deal with rust. Rust is a nightmare to deal with. So number three is gonna be right here. Everybody knows sometimes you get some rust going on here. Usually there's a piece of metal, a plate that goes right about here, and it's spot welded on. I drove mine out, I took it out completely. I think the plate's purpose is to keep this piece attached to this piece. But over time, when you're driving, things are gonna flex. And I feel like the seam sealer underneath, on top, maybe it lifted for whatever reason. You're gonna get water going in there. So water goes in there, it's gonna create rusting, and then it gets bad. So in my situation, I took my piece out completely. I don't think I need it, but what I did was I actually welded in a seam here. So now this is permanently stuck to here, and I seam sealed the crap out of this, right? Not just on top, but I dealt with it on the underneath too. This is the underneath of my Strut Tower, and as you can see, I stitched this piece to the frame. So stitch all around, strength, and then I seam sealed all this, and you know, followed by undercoating. So hopefully no water ever gets in here. From factory, there wasn't very much protection around here, so I feel like when the tire's spinning around, it's shooting water up in here. It's gonna make its way in there and it's gonna start rusting. So hopefully no rust right here. Number four, we're talking about the front wheel well, but we're talking about the back of it. For me, I had some surface rust around here. I was able to remove the rust and neutralize it, and then treat it, and then, you know, coat it with new stuff. So my theory is when your wheel's spinning, it's gonna shoot rocks in this direction. And we're talking about, you know, 27 years of rocks flying. It's kind of like a sandblasting effect, right? And it's gonna chip away, it's gonna eat away at this coating protection over time. And when it does that, eventually you're gonna have bare metal, the rust is gonna form. So same thing, right? Same concept. Anything with bare metal, it's gonna cause rust. So deal with the rust. If you have surface rust, you're lucky. As long as it's not cancer, deal with that. Put some new protection here. So I had some U-POL underbody, it's called Gravitex. So it's actually a little rubbery, so it can actually take the impact of rocks hitting and it won't chip. It's supposed to be bouncy. There's a lot of brands out there that are really good. Go with your choice. But in my situation, I went the U-POL Gravitex. So deal with that, then you won't have rust there. Number 5, we're talking about the rear wheel well, both sides. As you can see, there used to be some factory here, but I cut it out and I put a plate there. But this side, I left it. In theory, I think when the wheel's spinning, it's shooting water back here, somehow it makes its way in here. And we're talking about 27-year-old paint, so I found some surface rust on the inside over here when I looked from the top. So I had to cut out, basically cut some piece out, get in there, clean it up, neutralize the rust, and then treat it, right? Weld it back and then treat it. Same thing with this side. My situation, it wasn't cancer, but I have seen where guys had some serious rusting. So yeah, I want to take a look back here and deal with it before it gets worse. This is the rear wheel well, but the rear of the rear wheel well. Usually you got the exterior sheet metal and the inside sheet metal. These two join together and create a lip. But right here, usually it's just paint covering this area, right? For my situation, I end up putting seam sealer in here, a little rubbery protection. But the theory is, I'm gonna assume rocks are flying from the wheels. It's gonna hit here, a couple chips. And as the rust, once there's rust, it's gonna work its way in. And if you're unlucky, yeah, it's gonna go inside between the sheet and start rotting away. So you wanna take note and check this area also. Same thing here, the front of the rear wheel well. I had some surface rust, so I dealt with that, but same thing, right? We're talking about a lip here formed by 2 pieces of sheet metal. And right in between here, there's not much protection other than paint. So rocks, man, flying rocks is your enemy. Sandblasting effect. It's gonna remove the paint. It's gonna start rusting here and eat its way in. Yeah, even right here, man. This seam sealer, 27-year-old seam sealer. Seam sealer designed and made in 1994. So we're talking about 27 years. That seam sealer is no longer flexible. It's gonna crack, it's gonna lift, it's gonna allow the element to go in here and expose the bare metal. So you're gonna get some rusting here too. I would seal this back up. If you can, remove your old seam sealer, reseal that, and then spray black or whatever, give it some protection. But whatever is on here before, it's no good, so deal with that. Last spot is the rocker. Mine wasn't that bad, but I have noticed some things about the S13 hatchback, so let me show you what I found. All right, so you got the sunroof and you got 4 holes. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'm assuming when water gets in here, it's gonna drain through these holes. But guess what? Check it out. Goes in the tube. That tube runs down here. I bet you some of you guys don't even know about this tube. It's going down here. And it goes in there. This tube does not hang past your rocker panel. For some reason, it's tucked up here. I don't know, maybe from factory it was hanging past down there, but in my situation, this tube is just hanging out here. So think about this. You got water coming from your sunroof and it's draining into your rocker. Yeah, you got water sitting here. And if you're unlucky, your rocker is gonna rot right out. So I haven't dealt with it for my situation, but I'm gonna extend this tube and there's some holes in your floor and I'm gonna drain that out those holes. So we're talking about 4 of these tubes, right? 1 in each corner. So what you know about that? Deal with this fucking tube, man. What is this shit, man? Is it bad engineering or what? Alright guys, so that is my finding on my 240SX. I'm just sharing what I found on my car. sure there's many other spots that tend to rust. I'm just not aware of them. If you want, you can write in the comment below on what tend to rust on your car and share with the community. Nobody likes a rust bucket. So if you find this video helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't, and share with your buddies. Hopefully they can prevent rusting on their 240 and even yours, right? This is a community about sharing information, and we're all car enthusiasts, so just keep it real and stay tuned for my next video, I guess.